Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Positive Wrestling Podcast. And we have the full trio back together now. It's like the NWO in 2002 or 1996. You can pick your... I think we're more like the NWO in 2002. They were so nice. Remember that? They just came in. Anyway, Scott, Joey, how are we doing before I go off on a rant about the NWO in 2002?
We're good. I'm back. I'm
Back.
fresh from America. I can feel it in my veins still.
Well, I mean, it is kind of amazing. Like, Joey did escape a Michael Bay-esque... Because, Joe, you were in Florida when the madness was happening, right?
We were in Orlando. So we did our first week. We had our second week coming up there. The Hurricane Milton was due to hit Orlando around about Wednesday to Thursday. Our flight was Thursday night. So on Monday, we did a little trip to Epcot, had some quick lunch, and then decided we need to get the heck out of Orlando. So we left on Monday, got back like Tuesday night. It was a long 2 days.
You had a long travel, yeah.
2 days, no sleep, a lot of travel, a lot of connections. We got out. We're away.
That's crazy. That's genuinely nuts. Actually, on that note, before I forget, because it does kind of tie in, if you go to my Cameo, just search for Simon Miller, everything I earn in October is going to hurricane funds, charity stuff. So we've actually, I don't charge much for my Cameos, but I think we've made about $350 so far.
Wow.
So that's awesome. Yeah, that's really, really cool because I don't get that many Cameos, but I put this out on Twitter and people saw it. And so I've just been doing a bunch of damn Cameos. So all money counts, I think. So yeah, we've got another 14 days or whatever. So yeah, get your Cameos in and stuff. Also, shout out to people on TikTok. We are officially live. Lots of people have joined, which is cool. You can ask your questions in there. And otherwise, we're just going to talk about wrestling for the next hour or so. But it's kind of weird because it's kind of quiet in the wrestling world. Like, we had WrestleDream, which kicked off quite a fuss because obviously we tried to murder Bryan Danielson again. Well, we did murder him. That was the interesting point. Do you know? So because they were in wherever the hell they were, Seattle, the sports commission or whatever it's called, you're not allowed to bleed, apparently. So the idea was they were actually going to murder Bryan. They were going to kill him. That was his idea. I want to look completely dead, but then they learned they couldn't do blood. But that was the idea. Apparently, allegedly, rumoredly, people are talking about it. He wanted people to think, as if you were watching a drama, I'm dead, I've been murdered, and you'll never go... I think it's wonderful because what I like about it is, well, I think it only works as a balance, right? Well, actually, I like stuff like this anyway. But we had Sting's big hoo-ha, hooray, see you soon. The one before that in WWE must have been The Undertaker during the pandemic. Has anybody else retired in WWE? So the Undertaker one was kind of very, very sports entertainment over the top, but it was nice, right? It was a nice nod. Whereas Bryan Danielson decided, nah, I want to go out with a bullet in the head. I just think, I liked it. I thought it was really cool. And it created controversy. I like it when people go nuts on the internet. I think that's my favorite part of wrestling.
Yeah. Before Joe goes off on one, because I know for a fact he thinks it's his favorite end to a pay-per-view. I just want to say, because you have a massive listeners.
Yeah.
You know, you said it was in Seattle. Was it in like Tacoma or somewhere?
Was it?
You're right, it was. Yeah, you're right. It's in Washington. Sorry, not Seattle. Yeah, it was in Washington.
And I feel like the
true.
commentators kept saying, like, he said Seattle a couple of times, and he'd be like, don't say Seattle. And I was just like,
that's true.
I don't want you to get the heat.
It's true. That's because I listened to the Wrestling Observer and Brian Alvarez was melting down because he thought it should have been in Seattle. He's like, why is it not in Seattle?
Of course.
That's where I've got confused. Yes, it was in Washington, but it was over the mountain. This is what I kept being told. I don't know what that means.
Just the other
I've never
side.
been to Washington, but it was over the mountain. Apparently that's not good. You don't go over the mountain.
No, and Darby Allin got a bus the whole way. So, I mean, he rode a bus like Tony Hawk style the whole way from Tacoma. Anyway, Joe, you love this end of pay-per-view, so you
I'm excited now. I'm pumped.
I feel like I'm somewhat biased. I need to explain this a little bit. I'm a massive Mox guy.
Yeah.
Like, literally from before we would during our wrestling training, I was following what Mox was doing on the indies, like before he got to WWE.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was taking a lot of inspiration from him. And then
By the way, if you watch Joe's matches, you can see the Mox movements.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look
it's
now.
just ingrained.
I haven't looked. I'm gonna see it.
Like, he's my guy.
I can't wait. I'm pumped.
But I mean,
He even takes a metal door and then does a little roly-poly afterwards without selling it. Anyway, I apologise if anyone saw that.
but yeah,
Don't clip this.
Yeah, I'm just prefacing this because, like, all through training, followed a lot of what Mox did, all during his FCW days, Dean Ambrose, obviously in FCW, everything he did in WWE. I love the transition into Mox in AEW, and then this new Moxley. who is like, I don't know the shape he's in.
Yeah, it's a worry.
He's a terrifying guy at the minute. And so by turn, I was a big BCC guy, but I prefer this aggressive.
Yeah.
But I like a wrestling show to end in complete chaos.
Now you're on Simon's. We're getting excited now.
I want chaos. I want controversy, and Mox is involved. So for me, it's about as good as it gets. I know it's a little bit controversial. They did the thing with the bag before.
They tried to not show it, didn't they, on camera? Like they kind of like.
Yeah, it was weird. It was an odd camera. Yeah, I thought that.
I kind of understand the controversy around it because it is quite an intense thing to do. But for me, it's something that hasn't been done in wrestling really before. Yeah. And you watch TV shows all the time.
We've had this conversation.
Yeah, they do all this stuff. So I don't see why this is any different. And then you saying about, obviously, Brian wanted to go out as if he died. Like, that's brand new to wrestling. Like
that is new. That is new.
Like, the way I see wrestling, like, as a wrestler and a fan, is I want it to be as believable, no gaps, and just try things that no one's expecting. They're giving us all of that. And Mox is involved, so I'm happy. So for the pay-per-view, I mean, I watched it by accident.
Yeah.
I got back from holiday. We were here at the house. Scott happened to be watching the end of that match in his bedroom. I came up to say goodbye because I was leaving. I hadn't seen it yet. I didn't even know what happened. And I caught, like, literally the ending of the match.
And he was just standing there like...
I was like, I need to...
He had no information other than what was happening.
I had nothing. So when that free count happened, and they did the whole streak ending thing, like no music.
I liked it.
Yeah. So the feeling I got from that, even as a Mox fan, though, I celebrate because I'm a Mox fan, but the feeling of that no music on the 3 count and the groan from the audience, the audible groan, I could live in that feeling. I could live there. Like, that is such a good feeling. And I've watched the ending, like, multiple times.
Yeah, you said, listen, you like
I've watched the match a couple times. I love the match, but the ending itself I've watched like 5 times.
Yeah.
I loved it. This is wrestling for me.
What did you think, Simon, of the general ending?
Oh, no, I was the same because I felt like he had his big moment at All In. That was his say fare thee well, goodbye, and everyone crying and happy, and the kids and Brie, obviously. So, no, I very much feel the same. Like, I like different things in wrestling. And as we talked about last week, there is arguably too much wrestling on TV if you are going to watch it all. So if everyone is just going to do the same thing, it gets super boring. Not boring, it just gets a bit like, okay, that's fun, but you move on from it quite quickly. Yeah. Whereas with this, we got to get down into the weeds. I always know when something is... I don't want to say triggering because I hate that word, but it's sort of spicing up the audience because all of a sudden my tweets will triple in engagement. And I'm like, oh, people care. Fantastic. And I just think that, look, the problem is, not a problem, but we're human beings, right? So if you know it's your last ever match or you're going into semi-retirement, I think I would be the same. Most people would want their moment. Most people would want to go out, not necessarily with a win, but you stand in the ring, everybody goes, brilliant, 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 and you probably cry because you're like, this is awesome. So the fact that Bryan Danielson, this has been the same way for 30 years or 25 years, let's not forget. But the fact that Bryan Danielson is like, no, I don't want any of that. I want to, be murdered, which again, we don't see in wrestling very much, and it is a television show. So if you want to kill someone off, kill them off. But also, 2, now, it all depends on the follow-up. But we talked about it. Dynamite's in a very weird place at the moment. Financially awesome. Creative, well, we need to fix a few things. He's now set them up to be able to reset that on Dynamite hugely if we do this right, because there's so many questions. Why did Wheeler Yuta all of a sudden decide to do this even though he's clearly not happy about it? Why did the BCC put the world title in a black bag, which I missed, by the way? Yeah. I didn't talk about an ups and downs. I had so many people go, you didn't mention the bag. I was like, well, over the head. They were like, no, the bag. I was like, what bag? Didn't even see it.
Multiple
so I was like, well, that's interesting. And now there's become this sort of meta conversation. I should have got the name of the guy. I can't remember. When Moxie was talking about a greater good, I'm not in control here. Was he talking about somebody, or was he talking about the idea, which would tie into the end of the pay-per-view, that he is doing this not for somebody else, but because he's looked at AEW and realized the likes of Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy and Wheeler Yuta, I guess, would get into that, and whoever else was there at the end of that show. Daniel Garcia, is he doing this to light a fire under their ass to say, this is the kind of level you need if you want to compete here? And I actually think that could work because, again, the last shot we saw, pretty sure was Darby, Orange, and Daniel Garcia. I get it from Darby and Daniel Garcia, but even Orange Cassidy all of a sudden was like, what are we doing, man? This is crazy, which isn't really his character. So I'm like, listen, that's just a fan theory somebody came up with. But the fact that you can actually start delving into that fantasy booking is way more interesting when Dynamite does need to kick up the ass than Bryan Danielson lost. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have worked as well. So no, I thought it was great. I thought the whole pay-per-view was good. It's just too long. It's just too long. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just a me thing.
Yeah.
I don't need a pay-per-view being that long. But otherwise, really good stuff.
I really feel like I was in a trance during that pay-per-view because I was watching it and usually I kind of fast forward a couple parts of matches and I just didn't. And I was just kind of looking at it. And then like 4 hours later, I was like, I've just watched all of that. Like it was good enough that I didn't just stop, for example. You
couldn't fast forward.
For sure.
I mean, Hologram against the Beast Matos. I must admit, I thought I was in a fever dream. I was just like, what? And not because it was bad. It was just, I didn't know what I was watching at that point. I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I just kind of zoned out. For me, you missed the bag in the main event. My favorite part was Claudio just stuffing the belt in a bag really quickly. I've never seen
what was it?
do that. Get rid of it.
Mox didn't even look
Hide
at
it.
Who cares?
Hide it. No, I do like it. And like you were saying, I do think they are maybe telling a story about the new 4 pillars or the new 4, because it was, like you said, Garcia, Orange, Darby, and there was even Hook was in the shot.
Yeah.
And how awkward they were all in the shot tells me it was a purposely done shot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was probably because there's going to be a 4-man, 8-man between those 4 and the 4 BCC. But I also think they could be doing some foreshadowing of the next 4 champions or the next 4 big breakout stars, and they're about to do it. And the reason, Moxley broke, we talked about it the other week, the hand of Isaiah Cassidy, I think it was. And he's fine now, but he was like, grow up, stop doing the same gimmick you were 5 years ago. Then they did the same gimmick and they lost. So my theory is they now go away, they kind of harden up the character a little bit, come back, and then they're the ones that actually do beat the Bucks. But it's maybe in a few months' time. Then the whole Mox story starts making more sense because Orange Cassidy wins the title off Takeshita, or Daniel Garcia goes and wins one of the other belts they have, and all these guys, and then Darby beats Mox, and Mox is laughing when he loses because he's like,
happy about it.
I've sorted the company, and that's the story they're telling. So I do think maybe they are telling that story, or we're just giving them more credit, and it's actually they just wanted a shocking ending. But either way, it got people talking.
If that is, I love that.
But that
if that is the story,
that's a good story.
That is different. That feels like something I haven't really seen before, where you have a main guy in Mox who builds this crew. He takes violence out on everyone in order for those guys to just take the baton and run with it later.
It's very meta though, isn't it? Because he's doing it for the company, and I do think AEW have this issue a bit sometimes. So similar to Daniel Garcia saying, "I'm staying," and we're like, "Where? Where are you going?"
Right. So I want to shout out, who was it? I think it was. Is it post-wrestling? I think it was post-wrestling, John Pollock and Wei Ting.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to all these podcasts after Dynamite, and nobody was mentioning this about Daniel Garcia. Listen, we're all very, very happy-go-lucky wrestling fans.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to watch it from both points of view. And Daniel Garcia came back and went, I'm staying. Staying where? No one has never been mentioned on television. And I was listening to all these podcasts and nobody was talking about it. And I get worried. I'm like, oh no, I'm the idiot. But then thank you, post-wrestling. We're like, that was a bit weird, right? That all of a sudden he's staying. And AEW was like, it's been addressed. So that is something they need to get better at. But I kind of think, again, this is maybe giving them a little bit of too much credit. Not even too much credit. It's just true. AEW can do that stuff because I need something that is completely different to the other wrestling that I watch. Even if it's totally mad and it's a total roller coaster. It again, just the way that I consume professional wrestling, it's different. It gives me something to talk about. I haven't got to worry about, whatever it is. It's why, listen, you want to do 4.5 hour pay-per-views, just do it. You want to go match. And I will say, when you go there live, All In was the same, but All In didn't feel long to me. But when I'm watching it on TV, I'm like, it's a bit long. It's a little bit long, probably. Yeah. Although this one was different because we had ironically, we had some sports entertainment in there. Because we had the whole Swerve Hurt Business thing, which actually was one of my favorite things on the whole show. Because the Hurt Business or the Pain Clinic, whatever the hell we're going to call them. I cannot wait for Bobby Lashley. They should call it the Pain Clinic, right? Oh, that's quite good. But I cannot wait for Bobby Lashley to debut, because I can't imagine that MVP Shelton and Bobby Lashley haven't sat down with Tony Khan and said, we're only coming in if we do it this way. Because you don't want what happened before to happen again when Vince McMahon just went, nah, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So I am pumped for this, man. He doesn't even need to be on Dynamite, Bobby Lashley. Take your time. There's no rush with this whatsoever. But yeah, I actually thought that was quite a good thing to stick in the middle of the show just because it felt different. And that's why I didn't mind the Beast Mortis versus Hologram too much. At least it was different, but at the same time, you probably could have put it on Dynamite, and I don't think anybody would have really, it would have really minded.
It's weird as well because that story's been on Collision only, really. Like, Hologram's undefeated on Collision. He's not really made it to Dynamite, and then all of a sudden he's on the pay-per-view, and you're just like, and I'm not someone who sees a lot of Collision, so I know who Hologram is, but I wasn't like ready for it. I was like, this is it. It felt very much like WCW with the cruiserweights, and it made me realize that Tony Khan loves that era of WCW.
Yeah.
I don't think he could love anything more than that era of WCW and 2016 WWE. I think they must be his two favorite.
And late 90s ECW, for sure. Where if you go watch those pay-per-views, he's in the crowd constantly. It's Tony Khan at ECW all the time.
That he obviously likes that. And I thought to myself, they got all these belts and stuff. And I thought, surely they could just have a cruiserweight part of the show. So even on Dynamite, there's always one cruiserweight match. Like WCW used to. They just throw them like two guys on there. Dean Malenko and Jericho would just have a 20-minute match on Nitro in the first hour.
Yeah, it'd be really good.
And then on the pay-per-view, there's always a cruiserweight title match. And everyone was like, I watch it for the NWO, but I really want to see what those guys do.
Yeah.
I think shows like that would do it. I think it blurs the lines because obviously Young Bucks work a cruiserweight style. Will Ospreay works so it's across the board.
Yeah.
But that true kind of, almost lucha, well, there was lucha in this case, but that proper cruiserweight style that has a bit more of a choreographed vibe to it, a lot of bypasses and like, whereas Ospreay's not doing that. Ospreay's working
main event style
with a faster moveset. I don't mind that. I think it would add something because it's something WWE really don't do.
Yeah.
I agree, for sure.
So you tune in to see what kind of bags they're going to get out in the main event. But you when you turn up, you're like, I wonder what Hologram's going to do, or one of the other guys.
Well, it's no different to when we used to play GM mode on the computer game. Like,
can I just say shout out to GM mode? It was the best part of the game.
Bring it back.
Oh yeah, 100%.
When you'd format your matches, you'd do it even on there. You'd have the women's match. You'd have a cruiserweight match. You'd have a middle of the card match. You'd have your big main event match.
Tag match.
You'd have a gimmick match, a tag match. Like, it's a format to the show just to keep it interesting. So yeah, I think there's room just to have a typical straight up, like with the cruiserweight division in WWE for a bit.
Yeah.
I think it just changes things up. It keeps you entertained. You don't want to watch like the same.
Yeah.
And like you said, AEW, a lot of the wrestlers do a cruiserweight style.
Yeah.
But just like change that specific match up slightly. Give it a little bit more sauce.
It's interesting as well because AEW tends to have a no DQ match or 5 on a pay-per-view. Or like they have like a ladder match, a cage match, 2 street fights. And then
they like gimmicks.
Yeah.
They like gimmicks. Yeah.
Whereas this one didn't, did it? Like, and even the triple threat, they started to try and make it into like this is the one opportunity we've got to be like get a table out. Yeah. So let's get it out.
Yeah.
But I like that. Less is always more with that kind of stuff, for sure. Yeah.
I as a pay-per-view, I really enjoyed it. I think it missed a Thierry Henry phrase, je ne sais quoi.
Oh yeah.
Va-va-voom.
Yeah.
That the other pay-per-views do. But it was still, I still couldn't tell you a pay-per-view that didn't hit. It was a good pay-per-view. Oh, yeah. They don't ever miss on pay-per-view.
No.
AEW is a pay-per-view company. If you want to sort of break it down to their home runs, their pay-per-views are amazing. And I appreciate the fact that they don't, it's like that, they just do what they tell you they're going to do. When it gets to a pay-per-view, we're going to give you, like we just talked about, a bunch of matches, and they may not have a story leading into them. That's the other thing. Listen, I'm a story guy, but I think eventually you have to go, I come into a pizza restaurant for pizza. That's just not what AEW is going to do all the time. Sometimes Tony Khan wakes up and goes, I want to see these two. And that's what you're going to get. And there's something to that. Like, there is something nice to that. And I always like to put myself in somebody's shoes. I would probably do that if I was in charge of a company and I woke up and went, man, I really want to see, I don't know, Braun Strowman versus Bronson Reed, right? And I'm going to put him in the last monster standing. I'm doing it. Now, WWE put a story there, but I can see myself having not the patience and be like, nah, screw that. Give it to me now. And once again, maybe this is just me, but I'm such a big fan. Big fan's the wrong word. I just appreciate the fact that I can watch both shows and it's like watching, strawberries and then garlic. It's completely different. Like, it really, I think recently it does not feel the same at all. And there was a time when maybe they were kind of merging and feeling kind of similar. I'm like, no, don't do that. You decide what you want to do, and then I'll just decide whether I like it or not on that given day. And I thought AEW absolutely needs to have their TV business pick back up. Of course it does. I don't think anyone is disagreeing with that. You still get good stuff on it, but obviously there is a disconnect compared to what they were doing before. And I hope that they can use WrestleDream in order to kick that back in gear, which is another reason I'm very excited, like I say, about what they did in the main event. What I do want to do quickly, though, just because it's popped up, and this is the best segue ever. TDF Clan in the TikTok chat, appreciate the question. Everyone get your questions in, should you so wish. I've missed a lot already, I do apologize. But they just sent a message saying, Solo Sikoa or Roman Reigns. Now, I'm going to get rid of Solo. Sorry, I'm going to flick him over here. Boop. And I'm going to bring in Cody Rhodes instead, because there's a huge debate going on the internet right now, which just kills me. But I think it's wonderful at the same time. On Raw, we had the Gunther Cody Rhodes segment, and Gunther said, I respect you, Cody, because you came back and the business is booming and it's built on your back. And the Roman Reigns fans on social media were like, how dare you? How dare you give this credit to Cody Rhodes when it's all about Roman Reigns and the Bloodline? Now, this has made me realize that kayfabe is not dead, because people have now gone back to, if you say something on television, they 100% believe it. So no one can tell me kayfabe is dead. But I thought it was a very interesting question. And what I really like about this is, and usually it starts on the internet and then it kind of makes its way into television, is usually what happens. I am very, very excited about people picking, are you Team Cody or are you Team Roman? Because those two have to clash together again. And this is the first time since Cody won the belt and kind of assumed the top dog position that Roman is now back on TV consistently. They've teamed together. Maybe the Kevin Owens things means that, Cody's going to spin away from the Bloodline before coming back. But apart from the horrible things that people say, it's never said in a nice inquisitive way. It's always, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to murder you and your family. Like, dude, you need to calm down. I think WWE could be onto something here, because I actually realized this is not a Stone Cold and Steve Austin Rock situation, because for the majority of their time, Rock was clearly underpinned as the heel. People liked him, but by the time he became a babyface properly, in around about 2000, Austin was out for a year, right? Yeah. And that's one of the reasons WWE were like, well, thank goodness for that. We can move The Rock into that position. Here, we actually have Cody Rhodes, who is a whiter-than-white meat babyface that we haven't had in a long time, which I think is hugely important, especially for a company like WWE, who was built on the back of, we have the happiest, smiliest babyface ever. But then you have Roman Reigns, who is more of the modern babyface. I do what I want. I don't care. I'm very sort of self-involved, but you like me because, to use proper 2024 speak, I have aura. And I realized, I don't think we've ever had this before. I'm absolutely pumped, because if you can then manifest that onto television, you may be able to get a, I suppose, Hulk Hogan and Rock situation where you can put them back in a WrestleMania for a rubber match, and you have 50% of the fans on Cody's side and 50% fans on Roman's side, and that really could create something super special. So screw Solo versus Roman. I know they'll do that match. I know Roman Reigns will win. I like Solo Sikoa. I think people are way too horrible to him. I think his character's actually really deep and nuanced, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But I think we're on the cusp. If WWE wants to head in that direction, and they've got plenty of time, this whole thing could blow up. And I think it could be super exciting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We've talked about on the podcast, haven't we, that how kind of excited we are about having Superman and Batman in the same kind of realm. Yeah. And it is, like you said, it really hasn't been done. Like you said, has
it ever? Like, we're two, as in two strong, big baby faces as popular as each other to go head to head in this time.
It's tough, because even like Rock Hogan, like you said, it was like Hogan was a heel, but he became a babyface during the match, and then
it was a moment in time as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the only other time is Hogan versus Warrior, but it was different.
Yeah.
And Warrior fell off so fast. I don't mean to be horrible, but you go back now and watch. As soon as he gets crowned at WrestleMania 6, 5, 6, whatever, within about a month, if you watch the TV, you're like, it's not working. It's not working at all. Whereas we know that Roman works. Absolutely. The SmackDown rating did crazy numbers. And we know that Cody is working. So I think you're right, Joe. I don't think it's happened before. Maybe I'm wrong, and someone's going to go nuts in the chat right now, but I don't think it's happened before.
Not when you can do it like consistently, like week to week, where the crowd get to pick a side, and it's not just for a one-off match. It's literally week to week. I can't remember that happening.
I think it's happened in like people are going to say, oh, well, CM Punk was really over when Cena was, or right, like Money in the Bank time. But it's like a passing moment, isn't it? Like Punk's on the rise, Cena's here. As soon as he gets here, Cena goes away for a year, and it does seem to work like that. Whereas no one's going away. No. They are both staying there. They're sticking. They're holding their ground. Yeah. And they're going, we're both going to, let's just see where the chips lay, because who's most over is going to get the big matches.
Yeah, because it's normally, like you said, heel and babyface. Like you had Cena and Orton, obviously, as the most recent one. But one was always a babyface, one was always a heel.
Yes, Savage, Hogan, Rock Austin.
Yeah, it was always the other sid. Like,
well, I guess so far this has been that, because Roman has been heel.
Yeah.
But now they've turned.
Yeah, but now,
it's it'd be funny if it is a fleeting moment and then Cody turns heel and just like, oh, here we go. But I quite like to see the dynamic and how it could play out. And I mean, they are in the stadium business now. And I mean, to fill stadiums, we talked about it last week. Roman Cody, Roman Solo, Roman Jacob, Cody Jacob, Cody, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Cody, Randy Orton, I think might be the best story that we're waiting to see.
Yeah.
Even though the Kevin Owens story seems to be one of the most nuanced, fun, different ways of approaching a storyline. I mean, Kevin Owens has done a video today, hasn't he? That he said if SmackDown don't show the video, he's going to release it himself. Of, I guess, why or something. But and they're doing it all kind of, it's fan footage. Now there's Kevin Owens is doing his own thing. Such a good way of utilizing talent that couldn't get out of the hurricane, for example, and missed a double taping. There's all these nuances that WWE have done there that have kind of made it very interesting. So you've got a Bloodline story, and then this really lovely, basically, Kevin Owens, Cody, Orton story. That's all on SmackDown.
Yeah.
So not only are they in the same company, the same show, they're in dueling very good storylines. So I think they're nailing that part. But I must admit, the last couple of weeks of TV for Raw and SmackDown, I really feel like they've settled into autumnal, we're on a tour, let's just get through some TV. And it feels like we're settling in.
But it's also stupid Crown Jewel. I'm not being positive about Crown Jewel. I've decided. I've picked my lane. What a regression. Like, listen, the Saudi Arabia shows absolutely should have a conversation around them. That's not the time right now. But for the last couple of years, they actually felt like, oh, they're real shows. And we're going to use them as real shows. And the King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring stuff, I thought, tied directly into SummerSlam. That's super cool. Whereas now, even during that Cody versus and Gunther segment on Raw, which is very good, because they're very good talkers and they can hold their own, they may as well have gone, I don't really care. If you want to win that weird title, I don't mind. Whatever, dude. And it just... Yeah, and what annoys me, well, two things annoy me. One, the rumor now is, surprise, surprise, as soon as we're out of the other side heading into Survivor Series, no one is going to be talking about the Crown Jewel Championship. But also, we have taken Cody versus Gunther, which should have been a well-beat, long-term storyline that WWE are smashing right now, and we've thrown it into some stupid thing that I struggle to care about. I will love the match, but I sat there the other day, and I was like, positivity doesn't mean being nice for the sake of being nice. It just means to be shrug shoulders and smile. Realize it's just wrestling, who cares? This is not good WWE. And I think that I went back and I watched the Bad Blood reveal of that title. I think Triple H knows. He zooms through that announcement so fast. Yeah. Oh, by the way, here's a title. Oh, Gunther's here. Woohoo, Goldberg. That's why I think the Goldberg thing was just a distraction now. Yeah. I don't even think they had plans for it. I just think, Bill, get in the ring and everyone will forget about this stupid title. So that is a huge shame. But that's why I think the TV has felt a bit meh. Because what are they building towards? A match where a card where nothing matters.
Well, you don't want to waste anything, do you? Because Survivor Series is the other side. Yeah. So they're like, hold off, get through this. Like Punk going away. He's just missing Saudi. Yeah. He's like, I'm going away for a few weeks because I don't want to go to Saudi Arabia. When he did that announcement, he said, we're going to Crown Jewel for rehab season. And the crowd just booed. And he was like, anyway, here's a giant belt. Look at the size of it. It's very cool. I really see the Saudi shows as the international breaks in football.
Yes.
We're all watching the Premier League. This is very good. All right, we'll get through it. As long as no one gets hurt, we won't talk about it. And then as long as no one comes through...
Somebody always gets hurt.
Yeah. And someone's very excited out there. The Saudi Arabians are very excited about the show. Yeah. Oh my God, we've got the biggest belt.
All the power to them.
We've got the biggest belt. We've got the biggest matches.
Yeah.
And we go, it's just a house show, cool. And then we carry on our viewing once it's finished.
Let's get back to normal.
And it really does feel like that.
No, it does. And that's why I think everything is slowed down. But that's also why I like the Kevin Owens stuff. When Kevin Owens releases that video, I hope it's super well produced too. So he sat there going, I'm going to show you. I'm going to edit this so well. I'll prove you wrong. I don't know how we do this. And I actually think it's impossible. Well, no. I think we're doing this feud again, complete speculation on my end. I assume Cody Rhodes is being taken out of Bloodline versus Bloodline WarGames. That's why we've done it. It's a very easy way to take those two out. That way you can add Sami Zayn and Jey Uso in, and there's your 4-on-4 WarGames. I do think we're going to get a women's one, and that will be 5-on-5. That WWE loves to do that, right? And then we've sort of ticked all the boxes. I want Kevin Owens to win that title. I don't think you can. I just don't think it's the right time, and I think the plans giving into WrestleMania just supersede that. But I just do. There's no real depth answer I can give you. I just think right now, if you wanted to pull that trigger, you could. And I don't think they're going to, and I find that quite upsetting, especially because, as TDF Clan once again said in the chat, Mania 41, he's totally down for The Rock versus Roman versus Cody, which is the triple threat match we've now been teasing. And if we do that, there's no way that Cody Rhodes is losing that belt before then, because you want the gravitas of, oh my gosh, it's been a year. Yeah. If you take it off, it doesn't actually matter if you take it off and give it back to him, but it also does. You can kind of argue it both ways. And I would imagine The Rock certainly is like, no, nobody is winning that belt. Don't ruin the story we've got in 2025. So, yeah, I just think we need to get through Crown Jewel and then see where we're at.
Yeah, I do love the War Games with Sami being in it, and it really does feel like that's where they're going.
I love that Bloodline's got to a point, though, where we've got nostalgia for
OG Bloodline.
OG Bloodline.
It's so in the moment.
But it's not even that long ago, but there's nostalgia now.
Yeah, we got nostalgia for the thing that's still happening. You got to be so long. It's like you remember on a Nokia, you play Snake.
Yeah.
And start eating your own tail when it gets too long. I mean, that's where we're at with the Bloodline.
That's what
it's like. We're chasing ourselves here.
But that's kind of the true genius, going back to the original point. Like, the reason WWE is booming is because of the Bloodline. But then it's also because Cody came back. And then it's also because The Rock was here. And it's also going to be because John Cena is doing his retirement tour. Yep. That's why they're able to keep the numbers up. I genuinely think that if Cody hadn't come back, the Bloodline probably would have felt a little bit diluted in 2023. Like, oh, we've kind of done this now. But all of a sudden, when Cody is there, and Austin coming back, a main event with Kevin Owens, all these little things sort of allowed you to have these, I don't want to call them distractions, but you could put your energy elsewhere, and then you're like, oh wow, this Bloodline thing is still amazing too. So I think it did kick off with the Bloodline. I think if you want to build the house, that's the foundation. Yep. But when you start decorating it, you've got to put Cody's picture on the wall. I'm not having none of this. Somebody messaged me the other day. They probably watched this, so I'm sorry. It wasn't them that said it. But they went, oh, a friend of mine told me that Cody's the worst performing champion in years. I was like, Mother Hubbard, don't you start that with me. I sent them stats. Like 50 of the last 54 house shows, with Cody as the main event, WWE's broken records. And not just like numbers, but like merchandise, blah, blah, blah. He's number 5 on the Fanatics list. And not out of wrestlers. Number 5, Ronaldo, Messi, LeBron James, that Japanese baseball player who's massive. I can't remember. Atami. And then Cody Rhodes. Don't come into my house and tell me that Cody Rhodes isn't over. I couldn't believe it. Shocking.
If that guy's worried about the numbers, he should go check out 95 Diesel's run, because he won't like what he sees. I'll say that. I don't think anyone liked what they saw.
Oh, Matt. Kevin Nash did not like Bryan Danielson being killed by a bag. I listened to that podcast. He's not a fan.
He's not a fan. He wouldn't have liked the original idea that Bryan had done. The thing you said in there I really liked, I just want to get back to, was you were saying the Bloodline started all this, and then, then The Rock happened. But the reason they got big was the Bloodline. But the only reason The Rock came back was because they're doing really good numbers, and he's now going to take credit for it.
For sure.
So you're talking about the foundations.
Absolutely.
The Rock is the front door, and he's got his picture on it, and the rest of the roster are holding up the house, and he's like, "Look what I've done."
and he's The Rock. He can do it. If you're that big a star, you make the rules.
Exactly.
Triple H even said it in the press conference. He just comes and goes whenever he wants. That's what you can do. Yeah. He's a flipping rock. He gets paid like 250 grand an Instagram post. He's living in a different reality. I love it.
I love the idea that The Rock's just sat somewhere in his house. He's like, tequila business going well, and then he's like, SmackDown's doing good numbers. What's that? He's like, get me back to SmackDown. And then the numbers drop, and he's like, I love it. This is rotten. Where am I going? I just like the way he's just looking around.
The classic. What did Hogan used to do? Hogan used to take himself off TV when Monday Night Football was on or something, just so that he couldn't be responsible. And then he'd come back when the season was over, and they'd spike. He went, "Yeah, that's me. That's all thanks to me." Wrestling's so scummy. It's so scummy. But no, I think it's really exciting. And I would never pick a side because I'm such a huge fan of Roman Reigns, and I think I'm in love with Cody Rhodes, even though I want him to lose the title to Kevin Owens. But somebody was making this point, and I was like, "That's awesome." People they're drawing a line in the sand. This is my guy, and if somebody dares even give credit elsewhere, I will fight you for it. I was like, "Man, you go fighting." So yeah, kayfabe's not dead. Kayfabe is back.
It's cool to see history being made as well. Like we talked about last week, the idea of like Sami Zayn's tied to the Bloodline. The Bloodline story might be the best story that pro wrestling ever produces on a long scale at the level in which they're in the stadium business. And the ratings are going through the roof and business is booming. I love the fact that Sami Zayn, El Generico, is tied to it. When they do conventions in 20 years, Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso are going to sit with Sami Zayn, and everyone's going, I can't believe I get to meet the Bloodline.
Yeah.
And Sami Zayn sat there like, he's an Israeli-Canadian guy, and he's going, yep, here I am. I was a luchador in the Indies. Like, it's so good. And I love the fact that in the moment we're seeing history get made, and we're seeing it across the board. Like Dominic and Rhea, they're going to do WrestleCons in 20 years, and we're all going to go, it's like if Eddie and China could possibly do them now, we'd all be going absolutely nuts for it. I love the fact we're seeing these history because of how hot it is. We're seeing the hotness happen and what could happen in the future. Like, the Bloodline are going to go into the Hall of Fame one day.
Yeah.
Sami Zayn is going into the Hall of Fame with 9 other guys that are all in one family.
Twice.
He's going to go in as Sami Zayn, and then he's going to go in the Bloodline. And the Usos are going to go in as Usos, the Bloodline, and Jey Uso might even go in on his own now.
Yeah.
But I love the fact we're seeing this history get made all at once, and it's just nice.
I'm worried about Jey Uso. I had a bit of a worry after Raw. So we had all the stuff with Jimmy Uso being, please come back, and Jey Uso being no. And then literally they went, oh, by the way, next week on Raw, Bron Breakker versus Jey Uso for the Intercontinental title. He's so losing that belt. Yeah. And I actually don't mind it because I think if he's going to be in WarGames, he doesn't need to be the Intercontinental Champion. But I love him being the Intercontinental Champion so much. This is going to hurt me on a personal level, even though do you see that video that Bron Breakker did on Raw? I was like, man, you good to go, bro. Yeah. You are so... Although he did say you've been sucking your family off for 25 years. I was like,
so, okay,
did you mean to say that? Was that a typo, a verbal typo? I guess it was not. That's what he said. That's what he said, ladies and gentlemen, on TikTok.
We watched that together last night, and I knew he said it. And I went, Joe, listen to what he says in a minute. And Joe's watching, and when he did it, Joe was like, what's he just said? And I was like,
good.
What could he have even meant there?
Yeah, but I was trying to think, what's the actual terminology he was supposed to use?
Leeching, I thought, would be a new way. Leeching off your family.
Yeah.
No, man, incest all the way.
There you go.
But it's quite good. It's quite good though, right? Because he's going to reunite with them as well. Yeah. So actually, I think what WWE is really doing is getting ready for Roman Reigns versus Bron Breakker whenever. Because back in NXT, Bron Breakker would walk around going, "I'm the master of the spear." He called himself king of this. He had a word. I don't know what his phrase was. And now he's not just going after Jey. He's going after the Anna Whites. That's who he's going after. So I think somewhere someone's written down 2026 Bron Breakker versus Roman Reigns, and this is all just footage for the video reel. But I think he's going to win the IC title on Raw. Jey Uso they can spin off and have the big reunion. I don't know who Bron Breakker fused with then. I absolutely have no idea. But yeah, I can see it. I think and also doing another chain. So go on, man.
That's what I was going to say. I think Bron would have gone into the Elias story here, but Elias now out, I think.
So true. Yeah, ACL, yeah.
Which is not... It's all those training methods I think he's doing. He's like doing push-ups on his neck and stuff. I've
been watching him do that for years. He's been doing that for a long time.
He seemed more than ready to never tear anything, and then it's happened. But do you know what's weird about that as well? It was on that last tour they did, and I saw videos of him saying goodbye to the crowd, and then that night it was like he had tore his ACL. And I was just like, I couldn't figure out when that happened because he got a standing ovation after a match with Gunther, and then the next day they were like, he tore his ACL, and I was just like, when? Because he did the whole match.
I know.
It's mad.
Well, he's crazy. He doesn't feel pain. Feel pain.
It could be like slight pain. Like you can.
It could be maybe less than what we think to kind of make the surprise bigger when he comes back. But
they have done that before, right? Who did they do that with? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant.
Cena every single time.
Cena.
Well, yeah, it's true. Every time. That's true.
He's ruptured his left side, and then he's just like 3 seconds.
Yeah. Oh, he's back in 2 weeks.
I don't know who's next. Maybe you tread water until that may be Cena's first thing. Maybe when he's back. Sheamus is right there. Big win against Pete Dunne. IC titles that one title he still eluded. I could watch that, I think. So maybe that's where you go. But I really do. I think the Bloodline one is merging nicely, and Cody Rhodes is conveniently coming out very neat and tidy. I really think Orton's going to cost Kevin Owens the title, and then Orton's going to go for through the start of the year kind of thing.
Yeah.
You think we do Randy versus Cody before WrestleMania?
I do. Yeah.
I can't see it before WrestleMania.
I hope
you're right. I can't see it.
I would honestly take Cody and Randy at WrestleMania and just have Roman Rock separate.
Yeah.
Me too. I really would. Yeah.
And I'd have Orton win and then go against Cena at SummerSlam.
Oh yeah.
16 times
100%.
thing.
Yeah.
And I think Cena should win that 17th championship now. I've been thinking about it. Listen, I mean, Ric Flair's a difficult person these days, but in terms of wrestling, he is one of the greatest ever. But obviously, his career is so intertwined with WWE, WCW, NWA. And because John Cena was just Mr. WWE, I would just go, even for marketing reasons, just give it to him. And it's going to get a massive pop anyway. I think he should beat Gunther, to be honest. I don't think it would hurt Gunther at all because, well, Gunther is Cena, I don't mean this disparagingly, but Cena's not the Cena that he once was. A match with Gunther is just so old school and easy, right? And I think Cena should get beaten up for 95% and then win. And then Gunther should beat him again in like a month. I mean, Gunther has to beat him too, but I got no problem with that at all.
You don't think they're going to go nostalgia enough that Cena-Gunther is the world title match at Mania and Randy-Cody is the WWE title with the obviously underneath the Bloodline story in the main, and Orton and Cena win the titles and then they don't unify them.
Yeah.
But whoever wins it gets the 17th spot because they'd win the other one.
Do it.
Do you know what I mean?
Do it.
Maybe.
Do it.
There could be something like that. I'd really enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are going to hate what we just said, but I think that'd be really
fun.
fun.
Oh, yeah. I think so too. Well, another point for WrestleMania is Justin says WWE needs a women's midcard title because the NXT tag titles they don't exist anymore. There's just one women's tag championships. I threw that in there because I think we still have time. That should be a WrestleMania thing. We should do what we used to do, a big old stupid ladder match. And the women's, probably Intercontinental Championship, I think, is the one that you would make because it's more synonymous with WWE. And I would have Chelsea Green win it. That would be my person booking, which would also annoy people. But I think she's so entertaining. And I think this sounds somewhat disparaging. So like when we gave birth to the brand new World Heavyweight Championship for the men, it was much more workhorse. I actually think if you're going to establish a secondary title for the women, of course you need good matches, but I think you need to add personality in there first. I don't know what that's nothing to do with men and women. I'm talking more from a secondary title position because if you have people working at a high level for the two women's world titles, which you will do, that's why you had to approach it differently for the one that Seth won because you had the whole Roman Reigns. He's not here. He's here. Blah, blah, blah. So he was like, okay, well, I will be your modern day wrestling guy, whereas Roman was much more slow paced, cinema, aura, all that nonsense. Whereas I think if you want to reestablish it, you have to have good matches. I'm not saying that. I just think you need to put in personality to it. Same with the IC title right now. Jey Uso, personality. US title, LA Knight, personality. I think you need to do that for the women's mid-card title if we're going to introduce it, which is why I gave it to Chelsea Green, who is incredibly underrated.
Yeah, and I think even if Chelsea Green wins it, like based off, like you said, with the personality element, just to add a difference, it gives her an opportunity also to put on some banging matches as well, because she is really good. Yeah. I think sometimes that's what a lot of fans forget. Like, we see it as, like, we try to be entertaining wrestlers, but it doesn't mean we're not able to go like everyone else.
No, Orange Cassidy's a perfect example.
Yeah, Orange Cassidy. I mean, we have the ability to go. Our lane is this. It's like when a comedic actor does a serious role and everyone's like, oh, I didn't realize they could do that. Yeah. They can. It's just they pick their lane. Yeah. Same with Chelsea Green. Like, I think that gives her an opportunity, like, to surprise everyone on a pay-per-view with a really good match as well. But I do like the element of that the IC title for the women does become more for the personalities to take some shape as well. I like that dynamic. That's very good.
Yeah, I do too, yeah.
What do we think of Nia grabbing Tiffany's head last week and doing that thing? Because that seemed really aggressive. It's just in my...
Well, it was... I have to say this. I have to overpronounce it. It was a noogie, right? Like, that's what you used to do in school where you used to get it and go... I haven't seen that in 25 years. I don't know. It was very weird and awkward. But I do enjoy them. Did you see what they did on Raw?
Yeah.
Was it Raw? Yeah, when Nia Jax was waving her arms around going, cash in, and Tiffany Stratton did a weird jump thing. Was that Raw or was that the pay-per-view? I can't remember. I was like, you two are very good together. They're very good together. They're very entertaining. I enjoy them a lot.
I think they're quite friendly as well. Like, they're actual friends, aren't they? So it helps the kind of dynamic. But when she grabbed her head, I was like, what is happening? I had like secondhand embarrassment. I was like nervous. I didn't know what was going on.
I think half the crowd thought she turned on her in that moment. They weren't sure.
You could hear Michael Cole like gasp. He was like, like, what's happening?
Yeah, it was really strange. It was really strange. But I think, you could do that at Saudi Arabia because you got Liv and that's the story they're telling. Who is Tiffany Stratton going to cash in on? Maybe you should do that at Saudi Arabia, so at least we come out with a trinket that we can then tie into other shows. Yeah. That's probably not the worst idea. And I think Nia Jax has established, man, people get so mad at me for this. I think Nia Jax is great at being Nia Jax. And I think that's an underrated quality to have. I don't think she's ever going to go out there and change the world with her wrestling ability. But that's not what I want from Nia Jax. I just think she's... Well, you just mentioned it, Joey, right? She's totally understood what her lane is, and she's embraced it, and she's gotten better anyway, and she tied it more into her character. I really enjoy her as a performer. And as a tiny, pointless spoiler, which is not a real spoiler, I've got a video going up on the channel soon, which is my 10 favourite wrestlers right now. As in right now, that second I wrote this list. And I put Nia Jax in it. Because I enjoy your work. I do. I think you're really good. Right now, I think you're the best version of yourself, and that's all I need. That's all I ever need.
I think that is half the battle with wrestling. Like, even from our standpoint as performers, like, you kind of go through your journey in wrestling thinking, I need to be more like this guy. I need to be more like this guy. Yep. But the minute you figure out who you are, you may not be able to set the world on fire. Like you said, like Nia Jax might not be able to do that. But she's the best at being Nia Jax. She's unique. Just like everyone in wrestling is. We're all unique in our journey and what we put out there as performers. We want to put across what we do. And she is probably the best at being who she is. Yeah. She's found it.
Yeah, she's a bit of a troll, isn't she? Like, she's just a big troll.
Yeah,
like,
she is, yeah.
And that's kind of, and I think that's what she's like in real life. I think she's a bit of like she's quite funny and stuff. So I think she's just being like, do you know, I don't have to be the monster that talks really slow and I do all this. She's like, I can be a bit slapstick and silly and all those things. Talking of big and aggressive characters, there was 2 talks of Brock Lesnar on Raw. They were brought up in the Seth Rollins and then brought up in the Cody. That wouldn't have been done by accident. What do they really think they're bringing back Brock? I know there's a federal court case going on that involves him. Surely they're not going to be silly enough to be... Because I know he's got a bit of the Rock about him anyway. He's sat at home going, they're filling out these stadiums. Surely there's money to be made. And I know Gunther really wants that match and these kind of things. But I don't know. That just seems like you're going so well. Why would you try and potentially put like a flat in your tire kind of thing? That's it. So I'll preface this with Ash Price, because it's only fair that we call out the good TikTok comments. So it says, Brothers of War are the best tag team in the UK today. I love working with them.
Let's
there
go.
You go.
Love it.
Thank you, Ash. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ash.
And now on to more controversial statements. So my gut is this. This is a terrible way to put it, so you'll have to forgive me. But WWE has good PR at the moment, right? There was a time when they did not have good PR, and everybody was how AEW was born. We hate this, we hate this, we hate this. And they kind of laughed in the fans' faces. It doesn't feel like that way anymore. It feels very much of a unified thing, which is why the good guys get cheered and the bad guys get booed. You still get what chants and stuff like that, but they feel less to me. They do. They feel like they've kind of lessened a little bit. And I don't... Listen, the moral question is far more important than this, but I struggle to talk about that just because it is still a federal law case and I don't want to say anything that can get me in trouble. People forget about that. Why didn't you talk about this? Well, some of it's against the law, especially in the United Kingdom. So you need to be very careful about that stuff. But I also think from a product point of view, it's not necessary. And I don't think we need those questions to be brought up. I think we need to let the legal system do what the legal system needs to do. And then WWE can... well, not do whatever they want. They need to adhere to whatever the result is and then head in the appropriate direction because there's nothing more important than human beings. That's the most important thing in the world is people being well and healthy and taken care of. But I agree with you. Seth Rollins said it. Cody Rhodes said it. It was a taped show. So if they shouldn't have said it, you could cut that out and nobody would have known. I don't even want them testing the waters. It's just not the time. It's not the time. This isn't the Brock Lesnar show. It's WWE. There's plenty of people to fill those kind of roles. Put Bronson Reed in that role, right? I know he doesn't have the same gravitas, but that can be your aim for 2025. Who does Bronson Reed need to beat, and what does he need to do in order to start feeling like our big final boss? Awesome, great. And again, if things go a certain way, and there is a less controversial way to bring him back, then fine. I'll make my own personal opinions on that, but I understand that WWE as a corporate entity is going to listen to what a court of law says. But before then, unnecessary in my opinion, and it's a little bit worrying, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and also I think on a creative standpoint, other than the Gunther match, which I know Gunther's talked about and people want to see that, I don't really see any other matches that he's not already done, or we're going back around. I mean, like, he hasn't wrestled Jey Uso, I don't think. But if he does, he's going to beat him in 2 minutes, and that's not helping anyone. So, people could say, him versus Braun Breaker would be really good. It's like, we've seen him and Goldberg, and it was really good. We don't need to see that version again. And Braun's going to end up losing one of them at least. And so
he doesn't really add much.
He doesn't add anything to the product at this point. And I feel like I'm glad we're in the post-Brock Lesnar wrestling world where show, how we're dictated by Bloodline. We came out of the Brock Lesnar one before this, where Brock Lesnar headlined every major pay-per-view, and we saw the same match. And then we go into the Bloodline. Now the Bloodline do it. I don't need them both in the same company doing the same thing. So I don't know. Not for me. It's not for me. And like you said, the more important thing is the legal system and figuring all out. And again, if they're naming him, I'm guessing something's changed, because legally they shouldn't be. Yeah. And they didn't say his name. They just kind of alluded to him.
And that's it too. If there's more information that we need, please give it to us. Absolutely, please give it to us. And then that way we don't have to have these conversations. And that's the most, once again, just to double down, that's the most important thing. We don't really know. We are almost talking from a place of not uneducation, but we don't have all the facts because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So please tell us. I think it's really important to be transparent with these things, because you've hit the nail on the head. If Brock Lesnar never comes back, if he's your guy, he can still be your guy. I mean, there's a huge caveat and asterisk over it, depending on what happens. But I would like to see, listen, if you just focus solely on professional wrestling, which actually I can't do, I can't compartmentalize things. I can't watch Chris Benoit matches. I can't do it. Do it. It's one of the worst things ever. But in an innocent world, Gunther versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania would be excellent. But you can do Gunther versus loads of people. Like, there's so many other guys right now who you just said that are on the cusp that would probably get me equally as excited if we treat it in the right way. Like right now on the European tour, I know we've done it before, but we were doing Gunther versus Chad Gable with Gunther as the babyface. That's interesting. Maybe we can do that. Again, the Chad Gable storyline was kind of weird. They kind of just petered out. He is one of the guys that has been absolutely eaten alive by 2-hour Raws. Now listen, I love 2-hour Raws. 2-hour Raws are the greatest thing ever. I want the talent to be able to use, but from a very selfish point of view, 120 minutes, when the main event comes around, I think I've missed something. It is so cool, but there have been some casualties, and American Made just being in very funny videos, and Otis, and Tozawa got wrecked by the War Raiders. But yeah, so we have to see what's going to happen. But as we got to wrap up in sort of 5 minutes or so, huge fan of 2-hour Raws. Everyone's yelling at me on the internet. I don't care. It's so easy to watch. It starts and then it finishes. I love it. I love it so much.
We were watching it last night and
I was so thrown off.
Yeah, we were talking while the main event was going on, and then it ended, and I just deleted it on Sky Plus, and Joe went, was at the end.
I literally just went and got another Diet Coke from the fridge so that I could enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, I thought, he's getting a new drink out and it's halfway through the main event, and he just, for whatever reason, BT or TNT now, they record 3.5 hours worth of TV. And it's just, after amazing. 2 hours, it just ends. And you're just like, why is it recorded 3.5 hours?
I think that's what threw me, because
you were seeing the fast forward.
I have no idea.
Yeah, you were fast forwarding, and the thing that at the bottom was halfway along the bar. I was like, cool, we're halfway through. I can go get a drink. And then it just ended.
Yeah, I was like, no, it's finished. Yeah, no, it's a very quick show, and I when anything's pre-taped, no matter how good it is, it's never the same.
No.
This was not a good pre-tape show. No, it wasn't.
No, and I know SmackDown this week's a pre-tape, but at least we're getting a good. I assume it's a spoiler alert, but not really. A Motor City Machine Gun's debut. So that'll be really cool. That'll be worth tuning in for. I was just want to say that I'm a big Motor City Machine Gun fan. The era in which I grew up and got to like that teenage, and I was finding TNA as well as WWE.
Yeah. And the wrestling channel. Alex
Shelley was like an idol when I was a kid. I was like, I want to be as cool as Alex Shelley. the fact that we've come this far and there's these 4 weeks of vignettes of guitars, cars, and Detroit. It feels like Paul London and Brian Kendrick's are debuting.
Yeah.
Brian Kendrick,
It's a real nostalgia hit. I'm like, hell yeah. Have them run through everyone with really cool moveset.
Yeah.
I'm so glad for them personally.
Yeah.
But I'm just happy to add to the tag division, and I'm also glad our friends are going to have to wrestle them.
Oh, I'm sure our friends, the boys are going to have to wrestle them quite a lot.
A lot, I would.
Damn right. That's going to be great, though. Like, this is the worst thing I'll ever say, so you have to forgive me. I'm sorry, everyone listening, but when I worked the TNA show, that's the worst start to a sentence ever. But Chris Sabin was backstage. Yeah. And who did I say to myself, Simon, before you go, you got to go up and say, hell yeah, to that guy, as I make sure the tic-tac-chup doesn't close with this
the puzzle's hard, the puzzle's hard.
Yeah, the puzzle. So, I went to Chris Sabin. I just said, dude, I've been watching you for probably 20 years. You're the flipping man. And he was humble and just respectful and nice and somewhat maybe surprised that so many people were still saying this to him. So when you see them get to... I mean, they are. WWE right now, they're super big time. There's no two ways about it. I just think it's great. And you get this, again, the chant is somewhat redundant these days. It says it for everything, but you deserve it. Yeah. Man, to the Motor City. Trust me, man, without them, we don't have professional wrestling what it is in 2024. They opened that door about what wrestling could become, and I can't wait. And also, there is a sub-point to this as well, because we know that WWE has gone back to adult entertainment. The Motor City Machine Guns, the Viking Raiders are now the War Raiders. Yeah. We're getting blood at Hell in a Cell. So it's all changed, and it's all gone back. So... You know, that War Raiders thing was so funny. The way it came up with Vikings and then changed to war. And the crowd just went, yeah, all right. Like, who cares?
No, and then
what
like,
weird way
to
do it.
Like, isn't that how they always dress?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, someone said they look more like bikers now. And admitted they were more furry before. That's a fair point. They had way more hair on their gear before. But I was a bit like, you just look like Eric and Ivar. And you're awesome. They're such a good tag team. And I actually think they should win this. I think they should win the tournament and beat Judgment Day. I do. I think they should give it to them. Let's not muck around. If you're changing their name and pitching them like two big dudes, just let them run through the tag division and actually defend the tag team titles on television maybe once in a while. They're even joking about that on Raw. They're joking about it on Raw. Adam Pearce said, oh, you have to do a title match. And Finn Balor went, we defended them last month. They're even making it into a joke on the television. Defend the damn belts. The tag, actually, you know what? We'll end on this because it ties directly into you guys. The tag team division throughout wrestling needs help right now in AEW and WWE. It's not where it was a few years ago. Like we had Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn main event WrestleMania 39. And for a good while, the tag division AEW was everything. Yep. All that Young Bucks and Lucha Brothers stuff. So that's actually something that I would put on my list for 2025. Let's fix it. Not fix, but let's just light a fire under the tag team division.
Yeah. I think as well, like since they separated the belts at WrestleMania with WWE, they haven't utilized enough of it. They've ended up putting the titles on people like the Bloodline or Judgment Day. That means the whole tag division goes, oh, I guess we're not involved then. So whereas they could have, like I said, put the titles on Pretty Deadly or DIY and then put the titles on, for now, the War Raiders or another tag team that's on Raw. And the New Day.
That's the problem. That's
AOP.
the problem. Exactly.
AOP, yeah. Someone that's going to be in that weird kind of mid-card. Every single week they're going to wrestle. And I know they're adding Penta and Phoenix. It's now being extended to maybe in a year's time. But they were heading that way on one show. Because obviously, can I just bring this up? What is the logo they keep showing?
That was the Viking Raiders as the War Raiders.
But they never did that logo, did they?
No,
they didn't put it up
they made a mistake. They forgot to do it. But as far as I'm aware, that was meant to be the War Raiders, yes.
It was PRF or something said on it, but in like symbols, which is
maybe it was meant to. Maybe it was meant to be that, and they have obviously had to can it, and they're retroactively pretending it's the War Raiders. They've done that before, right? They've done that before, so maybe that's what it was.
But I do like Machine Guns. You know, you've got LWO and Waller and Theory, Pretty Deadly, DIY, Street Profits on SmackDown. I just want the belts into that area so that we can see that kind of SmackDown 6 vibe that you get in like 02.
Yep.
Where it's like good matches every week because all those guys can go, and then Raw needs a bit of help. Like, I would love a Pretty Deadly or one of those teams to go to Raw. Because, I mean, New Day are breaking up. AOP are in a faction. Imperium was a thing, but that's gone. So it's kind of... Raw's whittling. SmackDown's got 7 or 8 big teams, or good teams, underneath the main event. So I just wish they'd get the belts into the right mix.
They need to actually elevate that division, not just have two guys together. Elevate the actual tag teams to a certain level now. Give them time.
But, no, I do love it, but let's just make sure that works. Simon, you've got a busy day, so I feel like we need to wrap up.
I do. I have to go. I have to go be on a Zoom call right now, and I'm going to lie to those Zoom call people and say my internet was down. So if you're watching this, I lied. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell the truth. But we do appreciate everyone for tuning in. Guys, where can they find you on social media?
We are Tebow. We are Tim Tebow. We are TBA Wrestling across all forms of social media.
And check out Gunners Are Us as well, the Arsenal podcast. And wherever you're watching this, be it on YouTube or whatever it's called now, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, review it, 5 stars, subscribe, just interact as much as you can because that helps. Again, if you search for Gunners Are Us or Simon Miller or Simon Gmail, whatever it is on TikTok, you come join our TikTok lives. I didn't ask enough questions today. That's because we're into a smaller time frame, but I will next week. Otherwise, yes, just, keep enjoying the podcast as much as possible. And we're in a little bit of a groove now, so we will keep that up. And remember, always be positive about wrestling because as great as it is, it's not actually that important. We'll see you next week.